Hey guys, and welcome once again to our study on apologetics. Tonight we begin the part of this series that will probably challenge a lot of you. In the very beginning of this whole thing, we spoke about the differences in worldviews and religions. So for the next few weeks, we're going to take a look at some of these differing views, and we're going to take a look at where they stand on sin, salvation, heaven, hell, right and wrong, and how they're different from our beliefs in Christianity. Many people would probably ask me the question, why are you teaching about other religions and other world beliefs? Well, the simple fact is this, guys, they know about Christianity, so we should know about them. We should know about the people that are going to come asking questions to us. And we should know about the other beliefs that are going to come and try to sway us into believing the way they believe. So tonight we're going to begin this part of apologetics by taking a look at evolution. We'll take a look at the claims of evolution, and we're going to consider some of the ways in which it falls short of scientific fact. Throughout the Bible, we find numerous examples of language, information, declaration, and facts that can support non-random, non-coincidental design. In other words, the Bible proves that things didn't just happen by chance. But the theory of evolution is built on the belief that the universe, earth, life, everything came about as a result of random chance. This intertwining of molecules over millions of years, everything just happened to come together. See, it's important before we start to remember that evolution is a theory. It's not a scientific law, and it's not a proven fact. It is a theory. And this theory of evolution was initiated as a hypothesis in the beginnings of scientific research way back in the 19th century. And there are many unanswered questions about evolution that must be resolved to move from a theory to a scientific fact. Just take a look at the world around us. Our world is filled with intricately detailed plants, animals, and all the systems that make those up. For example, there are 10 billion nerve cells in the human brain. Right here in this brain, 10 billion nerve cells. And each of these 10 billion cells develops between 10,000 to 100,000 fibers in which to communicate with other nerve cells within the brain. This creates roughly 1,000 million connections in the brain. To better understand this number, imagine taking 1/3 of the United States, or roughly 1 million square miles. Now think about this space of 1 million square miles being covered with a forest that has 10,000 trees per square mile. Now imagine that on each of those 10,000 trees, which are on each of the 1 million square miles, there are 100,000 leaves. That's how many fibers communicate within your brain. It takes greater faith to believe that this is the result of just chance or the result of evolution than to believe that God acted as designer and architect in creating humanity. And guys, through research and discovery, we have seen different branches of science, including paleontology, genetics, biochemistry, molecular biology. They've all yielded evidence that it is quite impossible for life to come about as a result of random chance, or for life to evolve itself into different life forms. Think about the cells that we were just talking about. These cells are commonly viewed by the world of science as the most complex structures that humanity has ever discovered, the cells within our body. And again, scientists have revealed that just one living cell has this complex infrastructure, these systems that rival the workings of a large city. A structure like this can only function if all of its parts were able to emerge at the exact same time, and all of these parts emerge in full working order. Understand, there is no way a cell could function if parts of its system were behind in the evolutionary process. The cell would have never survived. And this complex design of a cell points to a great divine architect, a creator. And we know this creator, this architect, as God. And even though we know the architect, the creator, is God, this evolutionary theory has been around for over 150 years. And because of that, it's influenced the way people think about life, morality, and the world around them. And the evolutionary theory essentially says that life is about survival, staying alive, and looking out for yourself and for yourself alone. And we can see the effects of this philosophy and this thought throughout our world today. So as we continue tonight, I'm going to give you two things that will help to debunk, to get rid of this theory of evolution. First, number one, someone is behind the universe's design. Imagine walking down the street of a typical neighborhood, and in the distance you see a house that's being built, a house under construction. And all that you see so far is the wooden frame of this home. Even if there was no one around the house, you would know that it didn't just reach that state by chance or coincidence, right? You would know that the wooden frame didn't just happen by itself. You would know that it had been designed by an architect and it was being built by construction workers and by a company, and there was somebody overseeing this job, you would know that it was being framed by skilled laborers. Houses don't just appear on streets. They're not random effects of our universe. They are designed and they are built. Well, then you keep walking down the street and you hear the cry of a hawk, and it's looking for its afternoon snack. And looking and viewing this hawk, you notice the precision by which it flies. And you notice how its wings span outward and allow it to float through the air, motionless as it hunts for its prey. And as you admire it, you notice its feathers and its physical structure. How did this hawk come about? Was it by random result of evolution and a series of events? Or was it designed and created by a higher being? Well, guys, we know the answer to that. See, the Christian worldview affirms this. 1, the universe was created. 2, signs of design are prevalent. And 3, those proofs point toward an architect. Looking across the whole of creation, we see that some species provide protection and nourishment for others. All of this points to a God who has created this universe and created for His glory. Number 2, evolution is full of unanswered questions. And there are a few observations about our universe that must be answered, must be reconciled in order for evolution to be a viable theory or even close to a fact. So we're going to spend a few minutes examining some glaring questions evolution must answer. And in order to help answer these questions, there are things to consider. Consideration number 1 is this: the theory of evolution pronounces or states that all organisms originated from single-celled bacteria. Well, guys, scientists over time have observed that bacteria are the most resilient group of organisms. We know that bacteria infiltrate all areas of our world, including some of the most extreme environments. Well, knowing this to be true, it's perplexing to me to consider that bacteria would evolve into organisms like us that are so limited to environments in which they inhabit. In other words, if this theory of evolution is true, and we all came from these single-celled bacteria, shouldn't we have retained some of those advantageous traits of our ancestors? Some of these resilient parts of what a bacteria had long ago, these single-celled bacteria? Second thing to consider, and this is a big one, the theory of evolution claims that birds evolved from reptiles. Now, if this is true, then the scales of reptiles somehow evolved into feathers. And for some reason, an animal that was perfectly content on swimming in the lake or crawling along the ground all of a sudden decided that it needed to grow wings and fly. I mean, if scales were perfectly waterproof, what possible advantage would an animal have in its scales evolving into feathers, especially if that animal was not yet flying? Why would an animal need to fly, especially if its wings would take thousands or millions of years to be developed? And what did that animal do in the meantime? Wouldn't predators gobble it up immediately if it had 2 hind legs and half arms, half wings for that transitional period? That makes no sense. So consideration number 3, the evolutionary theory understands the reality of biology for the reproduction of species. For this theory to be practical, every male horse, monkey, elephant, bird, tiger would have to have evolved co-currently with the female alongside of it over billions of years, with fully evolved, compatible reproductive parts and a craving to be with a mate, or else these species would have ceased to exist. Consideration number 4. The theory of evolution fails to explain why lungs would have to be developed in an animal making the transition from water to land unless the animal was already living on land full time. But if this was the case, the animal would die from the lack of oxygen before it was able to reproduce or evolve itself. And consideration number 5, and this is a simple one, there is no clarification within the theory of evolution for why a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. There is no reason given within the theory of evolution to state why one animal would enter into a cocoon, completely transform its physical structure, and fly away. No scientific or evolutionary theory can attest to this. Don't processes like this within creation point to a divine architect or designer who created this universe? All of this shows complexity. And complexity is a mark of intelligence and cannot be reduced to a gambling on chance. Think about Mount Rushmore, the mountain with the faces of the presidents. You don't have to be a scientist to understand that these faces didn't just appear through erosion caused by wind and rain. Natural processes can do amazing things, but natural processes could not have created the faces of each of those presidents simply because of their complexity and the specified pattern of each of those faces on that mountain. And guys, all of these thoughts lead to a lot of questions. And one question people ask is this: can science and Christianity go hand in hand? See, many people think that you must either believe in the Bible or believe in science. And guys, this couldn't be further from the truth. The Bible is not inferior to science. And studying science and using scientific methods to discover systems and organisms and processes God put in place, well, these are ways to continue to search the mystery and incomprehensible nature of God. And also think about this. There are countless examples of scientific theories, principles, and discoveries within Scripture. So science and the Bible go together. And as we study the Bible, and as we look at science, one thing becomes very, very clear. God creates and we discover. So guys, listen, science isn't something that debunks the Bible. We actually can use science to help prove the Bible and prove the truth behind the fact that God created this universe, and help science to debunk the theory of evolution. Again, remember, it's just a theory, and it's a theory that is taught to try to explain the origin of life. And a lot of times people have a hard time trying to believe in a creator for some reason. But we know, again, that our Creator is God. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't by random acts. God created everything around us. Now, as you break off into your groups, you're going to discuss some specific questions that evolution must answer. Some of these considerations that we looked at, you're going to talk about these things. And also, hopefully, you'll be able to take biblical proof to show that God is the author of life, and how all of creation points to that divine architect who brought creation into being for His ultimate glory. Guys, we'll see you next week as we continue the study of apologetics.